So, well, without further ado, let's meet the panel. Maybe we should start with Jesse, and you can just say a few things about yourselves, and we'll go down the line.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Jesse Holt, and I was former audio designer at Gamehouse Games for about 8 years, and then Game Audio Alliance with Greg and Aaron and two other guys, Kevin and Barry. And then last year I started working at DoubleDown Interactive, making slot machine bleeps and bloops. And I'm really happy to be here. And there's a cocktail party at 6 to 8 for your information.
Nice plug.
And thank God we've got a teleprompter here. It says Tim Larkin, composer, sound designer at Valve.
Okay.
My name is Ernie Langoni with the Art Institute of Seattle. I'm a career advisor for audio design technologies and digital film. I came here from Carlson Audio Systems, which is a fine sound production company in Seattle. Prior to that, I come from the world of music. I was a recording artist for years and years and years. I like to think of myself still as. But it all funneled me and brought me to the Art Institute of Seattle, where I mentor students in sound design and how to work their way into their careers in the audio markets.
Okay. And hello, I'm Shyla HOBEL, and I'm the Senior Director of Industry and Career Services for Expressing College for Digital Arts. It's Emeryville, California. It's a Bay Area. And I've been with the company for 13 years as a Senior Director, and I work directly with students and graduates, both, helping them prepare to compete in this industry, in creative industries. I represent the visual and audio sound side of the industries. And my former background, I've been in the music industry in a very nice way for 25 years, if I want to date myself here. But sung on a lot of records, Aretha Franklin, Whitney Houston, Ted Nugent, a lot of different types of music. I'm still a recording artist and have a studio, and I ran very well-known recording studios for 20 years. So came to Expression and I really, really enjoy working with graduates and helping people segue from academia into the workplace.
Great. And I'm Greg RAHN. I'm the audio director at Kabam. Been there for about a year now. I've got a bunch of really pointed questions we're going to ask the panel. But before we dive into those, I want to set this up with a little bit of an inside look into what happens in a company, who the major players are, and also a general look at what happens in a school. So this slide, what is learned in school, and you educators can let me know if I leave anything out. Obviously, you're going to learn production techniques for music composition and editing. You're going to learn about sound effects creation, syncing sound to picture, voice recording, and dialogue editing. Middleware. You guys teach middleware, right? Yeah? Some? Some, okay. Mm-hmm. Then gear, of course. Gear. We all love gear. Mm-hmm. And then repairing gear. Maybe get your soldering chops up there. You got to be able to do that stuff. So there's the kind of what the nuts and bolts of the skills are that you get in school. Then what is learned by doing, by actually being there. This is a slide of something I'm currently working on. It's basically just some code that one of our engineers made so that I can plug in my sounds into the build and audition them and hear them, and then I can tweak them. I can make minor adjustments to volume and things. I'm not an engineer, so this is not my forte, but being a sound guy, knowing how this works is important because it's part of the everyday drill of getting the sounds into the game. Without this, it's gated. My work is gated by the engineer's time. And since the engineer is running the whole game, that time is limited. He's got to allocate it across everything. So this way I can carry on, test things, try things out, and he can carry on and do other things until it's ready to go. What else by doing? You get a sense of the big picture. You learn what exactly goes into the development of a game, who are the players of the game development team, and how does the audio person interact with the other team members. So let's take a look at the players. We have game designer, of course. He's the one who comes up with what makes it fun to play and what game mechanics will encourage spending and more playing and so forth. The producers, sometimes there's several. I think some of our teams, we have 3 producers. They'll manage the overall vision and the team. The project manager will manage specific tasks broken down by discipline, like art and programming, and sound. And then player experience or user experience. They help design the overall experience from the point where a player first encounters the game. Of course, you got your QA, quality assurance. They bang on it till it breaks and then report it. And art, that's art, everything you see. Engineering designs the code that makes it all work. And then you have our executives overseeing the whole thing. So I think the company's primary objectives are an important thing to look at as well, because there's a way that audio fits in to support those objectives. Obviously, we want to make money. You want to acquire new users. You want to retain the users you have. At our company, we run campaigns to stimulate purchases. So we have analytics people who are watching everything hourly. And it's really pretty cool because they can adjust and they can run promos and sales and things to make the game more lucrative, like on an hourly basis, which is really cool. I mean, when I started in '94, you know, we put everything on a CD-ROM and shipped it, and that was that, you know. So this kind of interactivity with the users and the players is pretty amazing. At some point, you may want to migrate players to a specific platform if that's a company goal. And I already talked about the adjustments that can be made. So how does audio support the company's big objectives? And that's through immersion. Audio tends to obviously make the whole game experience more immersive. It also gives the brand identity to the game on a sonic level. So you have your music, and it has a certain sound, your theme song, your melody, and that helps people identify with that game every time they hear it. Music gives an emotional connection, we all know that, and makes it more engaging. And memorable sound is very important. I think one of the best things you can hear, one of the best emails you can get as a composer is when somebody says, I love the music in your game so much that I turn on the game and I just let it run in the background while I clean my kitchen, you know.
I just thought of another one.
Yeah.
Production value. You know, when you go to school to be a sound designer, a composer, or an audio engineer, you put those skills to use in, you know, especially in casual games in a very, you know, kind of a small way. And so you have to, like, really utilize all those skills to get it to sound good on a small platform, to be effective, you know, to take into consideration the you know, the delivery system that you're working with, and you know, just be a really good, not just a composer and a sound designer, but a good production guy, a good engineer as well.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Company culture also enters into it. What are the team players' past experiences? You may find yourself in a startup, for instance, where some of the core people in the game, some of the producers come from a web background where there was no sound at all, and they didn't use sound. And then on the other hand, you may have producers who came from electronic arts, and they understand sound on a very deep level. So those are two very opposite ends of things. The guy from web development might be saying, okay, well, that's cool, we got to add sound. Let's put it on a list, and we'll put that in milestone number 9 after the game is launched later. I think it'd be great, you know. And that's not really what we're after here, and it's really not the way games work. I mean, games are entertainment products. So you might find yourself having to do some evangelizing about sound and some educating about sound. So what we were making is an entertainment product. Sound is a core element to that product. It's an essential cornerstone of that product. What it is not a feature to be put on a wish list. It's something to add if there's enough time left over at the end. No, it's not that. And it's not something to wait and add post-launch either. And being sound people, we can assume that people are going to embrace sound, and that's not necessarily the case. So that's something you can count on running into.
It is not this red-headed stepchild.
That's right. So here's one of my favorite quotes from George Lucas, of course. Sound is 50% of the movie-going experience. Okay? I think that's equally true for games. So there's the setup. Now let's dive into the tough questions for the panel. So the first question, and this one I think would be directed towards the educators. What advice would you give to a graduate regarding landing an audio job? Shiloh?
Many things, actually. But preparation, I think, of course, there's a technical side. You want to have hone your skill set, have that together. That's obvious. These employers that I work with, which are a lot of the top game companies directly, they have expectations. They realize where you're coming from, especially if somebody that you know has had contact with them and they've hired any of the graduates from these colleges or anywhere. But your skill set's number one. But running hand in hand, for me, what I've learned over the years in all facets of hiring is who are you? Personality, character traits. How are you going to fit into the culture is gigantic. And networking. I'd say those three things. I always tell the students it's really a three-tier process. Education is the first tier. But number two that has to happen is application. You have to apply it. You can't just go learn it and take it and go away with it. But the application process helps you grow. It's resume building. It allows you to advance forward, even in your own psyche and confidence level. But then it allows you to evolve and then take on better positions, learn more, and on and on. So I'd say definitely skill set, honing in on your preparation, how you share who you are, and the way you do in short order to an employer, and always saving the employer time. Being efficient about the way you deliver your work and your demo reel. Your demo reel speaks volumes. If you can't put your work up on a site, if they go to visit your site and they end up there and they see that the site isn't navigating well, it doesn't even look very good, the chances are they're not going to go any further. And you kind of just shot yourself in the foot right from the beginning. So I'd say a lot of preparation time, getting ready to land that interview first and then nail it when you meet the people in person. So.
Great. Thanks, Shiloh. Ernie, do you want to comment on that?
Sure. I just agree with everything she just said. I take a lot of time with students preparing to graduate. I start working with them actually the quarter before they do graduate, and I track them for 6 months after they graduate. And key in everything I share with them and mentor them on is everything she just said. Networking is huge. What you know, of course, your technical abilities, your ability to know what audio is, what sound is all about, is, of course, a huge element in this. But just as large, and maybe even at times more overly important, is how a student, a young person, especially in the interview process, is attentive. That was a nice ring, by the way. That's how attentive they are to the needs of the company or whoever is they're trying to attach themselves to. Their willingness, their openness to learn and to be a part of the team environment. And along with all of these things is the sense of what professional protocol is. Because whether it's live sound or working in an interactive media environment, team is hugely important. Being on time is hugely important. Being appropriate is always important. And all these things, all these elements go into success. If a young person can't get this together and actually communicate these things to a prospective employer, he's not going to get the gig. He's just not going to get the gig. And I can go on and on and on about all these things, but they're all so important. So it's not just one thing. You can be the technical genius, and if your social skills stink and you can't get along with people, I think, as you all know, you're not going to work. So.
As we always say, they're not hiring robots. They're hiring spirited people. This is art. And people are very passionate about this industry and all artistic industries or any industry that they're invested in. So this is not robotic. It's not a GPA. I agree with you 100%. It's going to be about how you reach out initially, first, how you capture their eye, what your reel is like. Were you efficient? Is it best representative of your best work? And then if they contact you, then how are you in person? Will you fit in their culture? That's what they're looking for. So.
Yeah.
Great. Let's go on to the next question. What does a game company look for in an audio person? Maybe Jesse can field this one. What do you think?
I think it goes back to some of the things that they were talking about. I think it's approachability and being friendly, not being cocky, but knowing your stuff and being able to articulate what it is that you know and how to, I guess it's understand the business that you're going into and understand all the small areas and the different departments and everything and how they all relate to each other, because these days as an audio designer for a casual game company, and couple of them, that's really what's required, is that you definitely have to wear a lot of different hats and talk to a lot of different people, and you have to kind of know how they function and how they all function together, and know your place, and yeah, that's it.
Cool.
Can I have one thing?
Sure.
A simple, oh, sorry, Tim, are you going? No, it's one simple little thing that I think gets overlooked too, is that you will use skills that you might not think are very important, and that's like Microsoft Office. You'll use Word, you'll use Excel. And most jobs, they're going to have you come in, you'll be doing data entry, you'll be doing that kind of stuff. I would have that dialed, because that's going to help you. You're not going to walk in and just, take over. Immediately you have to ramp up, and those skills, the administration side, and I always say, show likeness between you and the job. That's your whole mission when you're looking for work.
For me, in my particular, section of the industry, it's not necessary for me to know programming, but it could help. But you're exactly right. Knowing Excel and knowing Word, and possibly even knowing Flash, because we develop on that platform. So knowing Flash, knowing, just knowing Photoshop, all of these things. You're not just a sound designer, and you're not just a composer, and you're not just an engineer. You are all those things plus a little bit of everything else that you will hopefully absorb in your your career.
Okay.
You want to keep going on this question or move on? But every company looks for something different. That's the bottom line. I mean, every company I've worked for, they look for a different thing for an audio person. Some of them, it depends on, the company I work for now is kind of unique in the fact that what they look for is not necessarily an audio person and an audio person. Where the company I used to work for, it was very structured with management layers, and they want somebody who does a specific thing. It's like, okay, you're a sound designer, I want you to do this. The company I work for now, Valve, it's like they're looking for the right person. They're not necessarily ever filling a position. So it's not like, okay, we have a composer position open, so we're going to hire you for that. Or sound designer, we're going to hire you for that. So they're looking for someone who can go deep in several areas, and what they have is they call it a T profile that they look for in a person, where it's on the top end, it's like you're capable of a lot of things, and then T is where you can go deep and what you can really excel at, and where you can add value. So, and it's not necessarily, I mean, there's people in our company that have come from other disciplines that are now audio people, and audio people that go into other disciplines. So it's like Valve looks for people, they don't look for positions.
Great.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, let's go on to the next question. Are there certain traits that will help an applicant stand out?
Well, I'm sure everybody has.
Did we already cover that in this
spoken
one,
a lot,
or
I've had many,
anybody
but-
care to comment on that?
Certain traits.
It's kind of covered. I think that if you encapsulate everything everybody's said here, you can. I think this question might be. I hate to just harp on this stuff and give you the obvious. I think everybody knows the answer to this. I mean, like you said, in personality, I mean that's huge. If somebody comes in with an attitude or whatever, it's just not going to work. But yeah, it's just being professional. It's being good and knowing that you're good. I can't tell you the amount of demos and stuff that I've got that aren't good, and people don't know it. And that's my biggest complaint. It's like, I got a demo once of this it's just kind of getting off the subject. I'm sorry about this. It's kind of taking a little, but I got a demo once from this guy who sent me this piece of music, and it was just awful. And he said, "Well, play it real loud. It sounds better that way."
Oh, jeez.
And it's like it's not how it works. So so anyway, it's being good and knowing that what you're presenting is good. I think, and having that confidence that you know that it's good and it really is a great trait to have. So anyway.
Cool. Thanks for that.
Humble but confident.
Yeah.
A lot of humility and confidence. Confidence and
you have to
humility
blend
go
it.
together.
Humble confidence, yeah.
Definitely have to blend it.
Cool. Okay, how should I prepare for the interview and what sort of questions will they ask? Educators want to field this one, or?
Sure.
Want to go first? Well, we spent a lot of time on this, and preparing for the interview, number one is an applicant should, first place, go online, learn everything you can. If you don't know much about the company, man, get on and do your homework. And don't talk to anyone until you know everything you can gather, every piece of information you can gather about that company, their history, what they're doing, how they're doing it. I mean, get into it. Also, when you get to the point that you've submitted a resume, you actually get a phone call from someone, as soon as you say hello to someone in that company, your interview process has begun. I don't care if it's the janitor. I don't care if it's, the receptionist. It doesn't matter. Because they're going to go and talk to someone about their experience with that person on the phone. But your interview starts immediately as soon as you make contact with the company. But prepare in every way you can in knowledge and what you can gather and know about this company, so that when you get those questions in the interview, and everyone's going to get the obvious, what's your strengths, what's your weaknesses, what are you the most proud of, what do you know about our company, all those kind of questions. What I tell students is you want to be able to be intelligent going into the interview and knowing what the company's about, so that you can actually ask the interviewer a question when appropriate. Actually have a discourse instead of a one-sided interview.
I
Good
agree.
stuff, yeah.
A couple more things too. Be prepared as much as you can. I have a way that I've developed that I work with the students, and it's through a cue process, and it's going over into 5 categories that outlines very, very specifically who they are in 5 specific categories, including character and personality traits, which are very different. And so we work very closely with every individual going through and knowing what these are. And what I try to encourage the students or anybody to do is help the interviewer. You can't depend on somebody interviewing you, that they're going to be able to pull it out of you. Time is money. If you save somebody time up front, it's a good indication that you may very well do that if you're hired. So help them by knowing more about yourself and how you're going to deliver these things. You really don't, in my opinion, interview in this industry, you audition. Mm-hmm. So you may as well get ready to audition. And by auditioning means you practice. You have to understand how you're going to deliver information, how that's going to be accepted. Help that person get to know you in short order. And 2, they're going to ask you things like, tell me a little something about yourself. That seems like such a simple question. That's one of the tongue twisters and tough ones for people to answer. They're lost for words at times. Have these things worked out. And at the end of an interview too, when somebody says to you, well, have I covered everything, or do you have any questions? Something you might say is, well, can you tell me, what do you like most about working here? Create a dialogue. Listen well. Let them tell you. You can read a lot into people. They might be very happy with their job and love working there. You might pick up on a few things they say that, you also learn a little bit about. But it creates dialogue, and it shows interest in somebody else, and you learn something. So be open that way. And a really good thing is look at the job description. Look at job descriptions out there. They're roadmaps. They tell you what most companies are looking for, whether it be the skill set type, administrative skills or whatever. It'll be repetitive. You'll see what's being asked for in the industry. A lot of times it'll repeat itself. So really look at those and find, if you can, likeness of some work you've done before because it can tie in. Doesn't have to be directly related. And try to present that in an applicable way. So.
I'd also like to add that the potential employer will Google you. So it's kind of important to, if you have, pictures or crazy things,
true.
crazy
I've
things out there,
What kind of
you
pictures?
I don't know what kind
Or
of pictures.
statements,
things
Just-
you say.
Or things that you've said that,
Sure.
you may, like I think it's kind of important to be aware of your presence on the internet because they will Google you and who knows what page 2 has.
I agree 100%.
Good point.
Absolutely. Cool.
Good point. Okay, I think this one we've probably covered. What skills beyond audio are important? Okay, what is a game producer's foremost concern when it comes to audio? So this would be directed to our in-house guys. Care to comment on that one?
Well, we're the producers. At Valve, it doesn't work that way. So it's
Okay.
like, you're responsible for what you do and what you decide to do. So you're really not, you don't answer to anybody. It's a flat organization. So you are the producer. If you have a problem, you solve it. It's like, that's one of the, Gabe says that all the time. It's like we hire people and if they start complaining, then you say, well, fix it. And so we don't deal with producers in that sense. Although I have dealt with producers in the past, and I can go into that if you'd like, but I think maybe you can answer that better because you have more present situation. But again, where I work, we are the producer, so you're responsible for everything that you do, where you start and where you end. So a little different, but.
Yeah.
We do have producers, and I do work with them closely, but their primary role in my job is basically just to sort of articulate, what the whole vision for the game is, and just kind of make sure I'm delivering things on time and making sure that it's kind of like is close to the design doc and that sort of thing. It's but yeah, like him, they kind of leave me alone and let me do my thing. And
Cool. Yeah, and I can add to that. Creatively, it's your job to create the sound and the music. The producer his concern, in my experience, is that you're on the ball and you're getting it all done and you're getting to hit the milestones. Mm-hmm. That's what their concern is. They want to make sure you're there. And being proactive, knowing how to, deal with an Excel spreadsheet and stuff, and showing that to them helps them feel confident that you're on top of it. Describe, this should be good, I'm hoping. Describe an interaction with a member of the game team that you enjoy.
everybody looks at you.
Are there any?
Anybody?
No, there's a lot. I'm
Just kidding.
Fortunately, it's not always just game teams. It's teams. We do everything from we're branching out. It's more stuff than just games. But generally, the game teams are what I enjoy the most. I enjoy working with the rest of the game team more than I do the other audio guys. Just because it's a different interaction. They're showing me how I'm learning from them almost always. Whenever I need to figure out how to put something in the game or work something in the engine, there's always someone there that's available to do that. And I'm responsible for that ultimately, then they're willing to impart that knowledge on me so that it doesn't take up any more of their time or doesn't take up where I'm constantly going to somebody asking for stuff. So it's a learning experience when I interact with these guys. It's not necessarily, okay, I'm throwing assets over the fence. I'm just saying, okay, I want you to do this with what I have. It's more of a collaborative effort. So I enjoy every moment with the game teams are great because everybody has their own specialty. Everybody has something that they do really well that I can learn from outside of just audio stuff. And they're often just as open to learn about what I'm doing and learn things about audio as I am about whether it's programming or level design or implementation or whatever. So.
Great.
We have demo days, like every 3 weeks or so, where we, gather the whole company and we get in this little area, and then we play the game or games that we're working on. at that, at that moment, at that time, and we make margaritas
Nice.
and have chips, and that's like my favorite time.
That's great.
One other thing, though, just really quickly. I mean, no, not about the not about the margaritas, but the thing that you enjoy, I guess, most is when you actually finally come to that point where you've done something that you're really proud of, and they've done something that they're really proud of, and that all comes together, and you can both enjoy that together. And look, here's what we did. I think that's the probably the interaction that's the most rewarding and most fun.
Yeah.
On a serious note, he's absolutely correct. When we release a game and the numbers are great and everybody's happy and there are no bugs and everybody's happy, then yeah, that's a good time to remember.
Have a margarita.
I was just going to say.
Have two.
Okay, so now let's look at the flip side of that. Describe a necessary interaction with a member of the game team that you would rather not have if you didn't need to.
Go ahead and start.
Oh boy.
The hangover.
Yeah. Being unprepared, and I haven't yet at DoubleDown, I have not yet blocked anybody, but that would probably not be a very good thing, because it's like if you block somebody, you're not blocking just one person, you're blocking a lot of other people, and so you have to be incredibly mindful of that, and almost sort of kind of be several days ahead of your work schedule, so that unforeseen stuff happens, that you don't clog the cogs and things get stuck. So I haven't had it happen yet, but I don't want it to. I wouldn't want it to.
Try to comment?
There's lots of stuff, I mean, anything negative. I mean, that stuff comes up, and there's always going to be something that doesn't work, or conflict, whether it's, a work conflict is something that's actually not working, tools-wise or bug-wise or whatever, or personality thing. I mean, so any of that stuff, yeah, sure, that's stuff that nobody looks forward to, but it happens.
The awkward stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Greg?
I can tell you that one example might be a game designer who's designing the game. He's got an idea of his head how he thinks the sound should be. And my job is to design the sound, so I've got an idea of how I think it should be. And if we don't see eye to eye, we've got to have those awkward conversations like, no, it should be this way because of this. And he presents his case, no, it should be this way because of this. And we have 8 game teams at Kabam right now, in-house. And so I have to have those conversations when they come up. And they're hard, but they're really a learning experience. One, in diplomacy, how to get your point across without offending somebody and calling them an idiot or calling them names or whatever. And social skills, just how to interact with people. So, maybe if your school has a debate team, there's a skill that you could really hone, because you're going to need it.
The other thing is we're not always right, even though we think we are, so.
Good point. Humble. Got to be humble. Because that's true. We get close to it. We get close to the music we make, and we might get too close sometimes. All right, so let's see what else we got. What is the most difficult thing you've encountered as an audio person in a game company? Any others?
I can say that I think the most difficult thing is when you expect something and you get, whether it's, I'll try to be really general here, I guess, is when you get something that is much lower than your expectations. So you have to deal with something that you feel isn't up to your standards, and you kind of get into that same conversation, only it's not a matter of your view on an aesthetic. It's more of a view of a quality issue, and that can be very uncomfortable.
I'd say for me, I think one of the most difficult things that I have encountered in the course of the last 12, 13 years of working in casual games is the fact that sometimes the implementation of audio gets, pushed back, and it's not addressed in a timely manner for you to get a bunch of stuff done, test it, and make sure it works and functions with other sounds and whatnot. For instance, the target date is August 4th, and you know, the 15th of July, they're, you know, okay, we have all the hooks in there for you now. And then you have to have this done in a week because code lockdown, and then we're going to test it and, you know, bang it and all that kind of stuff. So sometimes, you know, audio being an afterthought it sucks.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, way in that gray area between how hard to push the team and seeing the whole team vision and the whole team's priorities and the game as a whole. You want to do what's best for the game, but at the same time, you want to make sure that audio gets implemented correctly and the needed amount of time is put in there. All right. Okay, here's another real world situation. The game is bloated. By that I mean the data, the size of it is really big. The game is bloated and the engineer needs to shave space. So he asks you to compress all your sound as small as possible. And what are some of the things you can do in this situation?
Compress the sound as small as possible.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe that question should have been a little more detailed.
That's one of the,
What
are some of the things? That's
Yeah.
one of the things you can do. I mean,
Okay, so what if the size they need results in the sound being pretty severely distorted and the quality goes away?
I mean, we have that issue all the time when we start our production process on a PC, which is like, the world is your oyster. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, we just started developing for the PS3s just only on our last, on Portal 2 was the first title we put out on PS3. And it was a nightmare because we were used to doing this huge set of assets that were high resolution. All of a sudden the PS3 threw a whole new set of rules at us. So we had to cut ambiances that were, a minute and a half long down to 5 to 15 seconds. So instead, I mean, you find ways around it. It's not, okay, so this ambience that worked at a minute and a half now is cut into smaller sections, and the way you integrate it then changes. It doesn't necessarily have to compromise the quality as much as you've chopped it. It's like now it's a 5-second loop instead of a minute and a half. However, the quality is not necessarily cut by that percentage. It's like, okay, now I've got 20 loops going on instead because I can stream them at different times. I can shuttle them in and out of memory or whatever. So there's a lot of other ways around thinking. It's not just like, oh my God, I got to compress everything. It's going to sound like crap. It's going to be small, whatever. There's other ways around that.
Mm-hmm. Change the implementation, basically, is
Exactly.
what you're saying. Yeah.
I just had to do this with an iOS game a couple of weeks ago, and it was huge, and it needed to be like a third as big. And what I did is I just went through trying to keep it sounding as good as possible. And I just went through and I tried my best to like take the ends off as much as possible, and yeah, it worked. I mean, making things shorter and kind of like time compressing them a little bit, and it shaved a lot of like almost 2 megs of stuff off.
Great. Thanks. Okay, so you play the current build, sounds are in the wrong places with erratic levels, or they're absent. What should you do?
Fix it. I mean, that's, again, if they're in the wrong places, it's my fault. If they're erratic levels, it's my fault. If they're not there, it's my fault. I'm not expecting anybody else to do that for me, so.
Okay.
And other people will find it, they'll bug it. I mean, if you make a mistake, we test on our own stuff, and everybody who works on the game, and there could be, and eventually it's company-wide, and you're in a bug base, and you get those bugs right back to you, so you'll find them, or someone will, even if you don't. But if you don't find them, and you're responsible for them, then, yeah, then you're not doing your job. But, and that's part of your job is to test your own stuff. But yeah, you just go in and fix it,
Great.
What he said.
What he said, okay. Next question is, let's see. Okay, so in this case, you delivered sounds with a clear spreadsheet to identify where everything goes. You play the build and they're misassigned. What do you do there?
I don't do that. So, I don't do spreadsheets.
Yeah, we do, and you just fix it. You like sometimes you talk to your developer or whatever, and if it's something they're willing to work with you on, then go for it. But if it's like if it needs to be turned around, I just do a workaround and let them know I did a workaround of some sort. It depends on the game, actually.
Great.
What do you do?
What do I do?
Yeah.
I go find the guy, and I know.
Break his
I
thumb.
hunt him down. No, well, here's
Gut him like a fish.
here's an example that recently happened. Different engineers like to work in different ways. I had one engineer say to me, you know what I really would like in this game? This particular game had a really complex UI. It wasn't your basic just one-page thing. It had several pages. And he said, if you could just take a screenshot of this thing and just have a name of the audio file name and an arrow pointing to which button is assigned to, or which slider, or which UI element it's assigned to, that would make it really easy for me. So we did that. And it was the easiest thing ever. I mean, it was easy for us to do. It was very clear for him. And we carried on. So again, there's, communication, working with the team as a team member and finding out how different people like to work. They're not all exactly the same. How are we doing on time?
12 minutes.
Okay, I think I have a few more questions. This is kind of a fun one. So the team wants to hear your great sounds. They stand around the engineer's computer in a crowded room, and he plays the sounds one at a time over his laptop speakers. Okay, so what's wrong with this scenario and why? And then what's right with this scenario and why?
This is a real quick answer. It's just context. It's just you hear it out of context, and 90% of the stuff I would say almost that I put into a game, after I've listened to it in the game, I change it. And whether it's remixing just a simple level or going in and remixing the sound altogether, I redo it. So it's just context. In both ways. I mean, when you hear it out of context, it's really cool too, because you get a little more separation. You can hear the actual sound, and that's great because then they get to hear a little more detail, but basically just context.
Great. Anything from DoubleDown?
That pretty much happens to us all the time and on demo days. And audio is one of the things that people are always commenting on. It doesn't seem like that's the case with artwork and illustrations and whatnot, but audio, everybody in the company has something to say about it, and I typically hear it.
Yeah. I think Tim made a good point that it's context and perspective. And one of the things I've started doing to address that is, especially with UI sounds, since they're all very subtle, and you really need to hear them in perspective to get an idea of how they're going to sound. If you take a rollover sound and crank it up and listen to it, it's going to sound pretty ugly. But when it's in context and it's barely audible as you roll over some highlighted button or something, then it's starting to make sense. So what I'll do is I'll do a movie capture of the UI in action. I'll click around on everything. And I'll take it into my DAW and I'll line up all the sounds. And I'll play with it that way until it's to a point where I like it. And then I'll present that to the team and say, hey, what do you think of this? And it doesn't take any engineering time. I get to control the perspective. I'll have some background music in there, some of the ambient in there, so they get a clear picture of how all these things work together. So what is right with that scenario and why? Can anybody think of what could be right with that?
Can't think of any.
Okay.
It's fun. Margaritas?
It's fun if there's margaritas, yeah.
Margaritas and chips.
Don't forget the chips.
Well, I think listening to laptop speakers in a room full of people is a possible listening scenario that somebody will encounter. It's like listening on Oratones or small speakers in your studio, because everyone's not listening on the same thing. So if you can make it work on there, that's kind of a good test. And when there's a din of a room going on, then it really shows you, reveals what sounds are getting lost and so forth, and what sounds are jumping out.
That was a trick question. That's not fair.
Fair. So that's all we got. Those are the questions. Let's open it up for Q&A from the audience at this point. Yes, do we have a mic?
So I'm just starting my career path. Like, I just got into college. I'm starting my sophomore year. So I'm just wondering, what path do I have to take to end up as a composer for a video game company?
Okay, good question. Anybody want to field that one?
I can tell you, I can just tell you what my path was. It doesn't mean that's going to be anything close to what your path is or anybody else in this room. So, you know, that's such a broad question.
It is.
And it's so hard to answer because where you're going to end up is not where you're going to expect right now anyway. And it's not where Greg and I started together in this industry 18 years ago now. And we started out as a commercial, we started a company to do commercials and do for radio, TV, that kind of stuff. And we ended up, it's like the CD-ROMs just got, I tell this story all the time, and Greg's probably tired of hearing it. But the funniest thing is, here's our path, okay? Here's how both of us got into this industry. We opened the phone book, and this is kind of a character of what actually happened. We opened the phone book, and Broderbund Software was like under B. It was the first one we called them up, and they hired us. So it was like, and the rest is history. I mean, that's a very condensed version, but that's kind of what happened. We got lucky. It was the timing was right. We just happened to be in the right place at the right time, and the rest is history. You may be in the same instance. The people that you're in school with right now, pay close attention to them. Stay close to them, because they're going to be the next level of producers and directors and whatever, the level designers, programmers who are going to know your work. Those are the connections you're going to want to keep. And one of those people may end up at EA or Sony or whatever and say, oh yeah, when I was in school, we did this project together. You got to check this girl out. She does great stuff, whatever. So that's what that's only one thing, but it's so wide and so varied. Everybody in here, I'm sure, has a different story.
Absolutely. I have just one little thing, too. Try to surround yourself with people that do what you want to do better than you do. And don't be afraid of that, because you'll learn. Fall down. Go ahead and fall down. Because if you're going to be in this industry and you're considered what we call bone china, very fragile, and you're going to crack, you're going to have your days, but it's okay. You're going to fall down, get up, and then learn why, and just try it again and stay focused on that. And join maybe some affiliations. There's GANG, Game Audio Network Guild, and there's different things you can join where you can network with people, you can meet people, see people, continue to grow socially and networking, and by learning and asking questions technically and all that. So that can help you too.
I'd also say that compose a lot and have lots and lots of stuff in lots of different genres, and make some of your compositions, make them 30 seconds long, or make them a minute long, make them loop, but just have lots and lots of stuff. Write all the time, and just keep writing. When I went to the University of Washington to get certified as an audio engineer back in the 90s, the very first thing in one of the first classes, the instructor said to the 30 of us that were there in that class, he said, like, audio post-production and sound designing is not necessarily what you know, but it's what these guys said earlier, it's your ability to network. And I heard that, and for the rest of the program, I was focused on networking, like learning where there are meetups in the area, who are the sound designers in my area, who's working for which company, all that stuff, trying to figure out who are like-minded people in the industry, and how I can get to know them, and just rub elbows with the right people.
Yeah, and the other side of the coin is you want to get the work, but you also want to keep the work. And to keep working in this industry has a lot to do with people. To piggyback on Tim's story about us being at Broderbund, when that all ended, we had made relationships with lots and lots of producers over the years that we were there. So what do? They go off and find new jobs at new startups in the industry. And when they need sound, who do they call? People that they worked with before that they really enjoyed working with. So that's another source of employment. And for me, that turned out to be a great thing. I went home to my wife and I said, hey, I got laid off. It's over. I don't know what we're going to do now. And then this call started coming in. Hey, Greg, I'm at this new startup. Can you do some sound for us? And one thing led to another, and all of a sudden, 10 years went by, and I was working the whole time. So relationships are the key.
Great advice.
Thanks. Any other questions? Yeah, want to hand over the microphone?
Actually, Jesse, you were just commenting on what I was going to ask, and it's about portfolios or online presence. I enjoy all forms of music. I play everything from heavy metal to dubstep, and some's in the box, some's on analog gear. I want to not shoot myself in the foot with attracting game developers and looking at that aspect of my music. At the same time, I don't want them to necessarily hear like that heavy metal song first and be turned away. So I'm wondering, do you guys, some of you mentioned that you're also recording artists. Do you have separate identities for portfolios? Like, do you emphasize the work that would attract game developers in one area and keep your singer-songwriter stuff in another area?
Absolutely. Because I'll tell you, we have every week we have an HRM meeting, or we used to for a while, and we go through demos. And you know, the dubstep stuff is like, okay, nice. The problem is, again, in getting demos, I often, when I was working at Cyan, I was working on a game called Myst and Riven and this stuff, and we would get stuff, we'd get shred metal, people sending me shred metal, say, this is, talk about context. What am I going to do with this?
Right.
So if I don't immediately get some sort of context, there's no point in going on.
Sure.
So I would definitely keep it separate.
I don't mean to ask an additional question, but you also commented on this length of songs. Like some stuff, you know, I'll have 16 bars of ambiance building before a beat necessarily drops. But also, if I just chop it off to right where the meat comes in, it might sound a little abrupt and unprofessional. So I'm kind of debating, I don't want to lose someone's attention. I'm going to grab it, but I don't want it to sound all choppy.
Figure out how to make it sound professional and make it work.
Yeah, yeah. I just did some portfolio evaluations at the Art Institute last month, or earlier this month, I guess it was. And I was really surprised at how many of the portfolios had, I don't know, what is it called? Black metal? I mean, it was like really fast, you know, that kind of stuff where it's sure. And I was like, wow, this is like interesting. There were some composers and sound designers that you know, they got it, and their portfolios were fantastic. Like 3 of them that were just blew me out of the water, and then the other ones were just sort of like, you know, some of the stuff in their portfolio was unapproachable and maybe even borderline unlistenable. And I think that you have to, like, you know, if you're going to target a specific game company or a game type of, you know, game developer, you write music and present music that is going to work with them, because it does have, I think it has, you know, a sound. I think casual games have a sound.
Mm-hmm. Did those demos that blew you away, was it the quality of the production, or was it their insight to what a game developer would be looking for?
Well, you know, granted, I wasn't there to, they weren't, you know, coming to me with, you know, game audio stuff, but you know, it was just like, I think in general, the monster metal probably isn't the best, you know, way to go about presenting your skills. I think, you know, like orchestral stuff is good, and I mean, just if it's well produced, I think it's good. But I also think it does need to be kind of chopped down and in short little pieces that are, you know, palatable, so that people can flip through your music and get the meat and potatoes of it pretty quickly.
I think in a nutshell, it's be diverse. If you're going to be a composer, be as diverse as you can and be appropriate.
Okay.
I mean, for whatever you're doing, you know, be appropriate, but be diverse. If you can write music,
Write a
be
lot of
diverse.
it.
Write a lot of it. Write all the time.
Okay. Thank you. I'll continue to do so.
One last thing too in your work is in your preparation is make sure you clearly define what you're doing in these pieces.
Okay.
That's really important.
Okay.
People want to know, what did you do in the piece? You know, you might be playing this, doing that, composing this, that. You might be using some existing piece already, a game, and you're trying to show what you're doing. Make sure you define what that is in there. They don't know. They're looking at this, and you've done only part of it. That helps. Again, it's efficient. It takes them there, lets them see what you're doing, and always list your credits, your information, where you can be contacted. All that has to be just dialed.
Okay.
So it's just what I'm told by companies, that's really, really important to them. And use real instruments whenever you can. Even if you combine them with synthesized instruments, whenever you can have real instruments. I know the different companies that I've worked with, they like to hear that. And
You're
they-
answering my.
they
I've
veer-
had a million questions. You're kind of
They,
going
they
through them, so
veer
thank
way
you.
too. People tend to get funny when all they hear are library sounds.
Okay, great.
If you're going to be a sound designer, be a sound designer.
Right.
Great. Well, thank you very much, you guys.
I think we have time for one more question, if anybody has one.
What does an impressive sound design demo look like? How many is it scenes? Is it sequences of sounds you've created? Is it some interactive context? Does it need to have visuals attached to it? What does that look like?
Show how you did it and what you did. It's like see it in a game, ideally. It's like if you're going for a game company, I want to see a scene from the game capture. If you've got screenshots of your text files, or if you got screenshots of your Wise sessions or whatever, or how you did that, that's what people want to see. It's like there's a billion Hollywood sound designers out there that can do the cutscenes for days, and that's good too. If you've got if you can have a combination of that stuff, great. But if you're going for games, you got to be able to show that here's what I put in the game and here's what it sounds like in the game.